this section, I'm going to be giving some anti-aging tips for applying makeup. Now, Bonnie here, my model, as you can see, she's pretty young, but the whole anti-aging concept in makeup is something that I think even girls in their mid-20s are concerned about. How makeup, the wrong sort of makeup, can really age you 10 years. And that's something we all want to avoid. So these are just tips to help even people from really mid-20s on to look fresh and to make sure that the makeup they're using isn't aging in any way. So what often happens as you're getting a little bit older is that you start to get sort of more pigmentation in the skin and the skin becomes patchier. Often it's following pregnancy or just generally hormonal changes or some sun damage or what have you. So it becomes almost trickier to shop for foundation because often you'll have different areas of your face that are different colours. And it's really understanding how to correct those without applying too much makeup, because if you apply too much foundation, powder, concealer, etc., that will age you instantly. There's nothing more aging actually than a heavy foundation. So I'm going to be looking towards concealing lots of these sort of blemish marks and pigmentation marks, but at the same time ensuring that the skin looks very fresh. Okay, I'm going to start with foundation again, and I'm using a foundation that has no oil in it, so it's good for the oily skin, but it also has light reflecting particles in, so it's good for giving that lovely luminous glow. And I'm just going to put a very light coverage all over. I'm not going to worry too much about covering the pigmentation at this point, because as I said, if you have that in mind when you're doing your foundation, you'll end up with so much on that it will have the opposite effect. I know I say less is more a lot, but I think when it comes to this type of makeup, you really have to bear in mind that you don't want to emphasise the pores of the skin. You want the skin to look as refined as possible. So this product I'm using here is the other end in the packaging from the concealer, and it acts like a filler. It's almost sort of blurring the line between plastic surgery and makeup almost. By using this product, it will gently fill in any surface lines and give a smooth base to apply the concealer on top. Again, this is light reflective, so it's not too heavy. It's not going to gather in any lines that you have around your eyes, but it is heavy enough to cover dark circles. Now I'm going to use concealer. Now, as you can see, we've got a little bit more pigmentation here on the skin than we had previously, so I'm going to have to just apply concealer in a few more areas. Just anywhere where there's patchiness, especially around the sides here on Bonnie, where she does have a little bit of pigmentation. And by just applying the heavier concealer where you need it, it enables you to leave the rest of the face looking quite natural. I think clever use of concealer for problems like pigmentation as you're getting older is just invaluable. If you know how to use it and you can blend it in, it just means you can get a flawless base without having to resort to the, painting on the mask. Okay, so I've just finished the concealing there. The next thing I'm going to use is a luminizer or a highlighting fluid. So there are two ways of using them. You can either add a little bit to your foundation, which is great if you've got a slightly older, drier skin, because again, it will give that lovely light reflection. Or you can just use it in the areas where the light's going to hit your face. So that's what I'm going to show here on Bonnie, as she has quite oily skin, so I don't want to use it all over. Now, the best place to use them are the places the light naturally hits your face. So that would be the top of the cheekbone, mainly. And it just means that when the light catches your face, the contours of your face will really stand out. It will give a lovely youthful look to the skin. And also it's a really fresh and quite modern look. Okay, I'm just adding a tiny little bit onto the brow bone there as well, so you really catch the light in that area. And again, as with everything, less is more. You really don't want to go for a fully metallic look on your face, which really isn't going to look good. We're not going for a spaceman look. It's more just so the skin looks polished. Okay, when I powder this time, I'm going to make sure that I don't powder all over the face. So again, I'm sticking to the T-zone. Now, how much powder you use depends on your skin type. If you have an older skin which is dry, you'll probably need hardly any powder at all. Bonnie's skin is very oily, so I'm just making sure that I'm taking off any ugly shine from the T-zone there. But I'm leaving the area around the eyes because I don't want to emphasise any small lines. And also, I want to keep this area where I've done the highlighter quite free of powder so it really picks up the light. Okay, so I'm just starting to do some eye makeup. So I've used a pale base all over Bonnie's lid. This is because Bonnie has quite deep set eyes and I want to bring them out. I've also used a brown pencil, and I've used it, if you could just close your eyes for me, I've used it along very, very close to the eyelashes. I've almost dotted it in between the lashes and then blended it away with the cotton bud. And the reason I'm doing that is because as you're getting older, your eyelashes tend to thin out quite a bit. And by cheating, putting the pencil in between the lashes, you're creating almost a fake bulk at the root. So it gives you that really great definition at the roots of the lashes. Now the next thing I'm going to do is a little bit of contouring on the eyes. And this is really, really important because as you're getting older, the eyelid tends to drop down a little bit. And when you're very young, you have a very clearly defined socket line. As you're getting older, you tend to lose that. And you can cheat it with makeup. It's almost like, it's a bit like doing an eye lift, but without any surgery. You can do that with makeup. Now, Bonnie was explaining to me, one of the reasons she's plucked her eyebrows so thin is because her eyes are quite heavy set, and this area is quite prominent. And she sort of lost her socket line. Now, you don't need to pluck your eyebrows very thin to do it. You can do it with makeup. I'm going to use a mid-tone brown colour. Just quite a natural, it's quite a warm brown tone. And I'm going to do it, if you can just, I want it to be in the socket line. And the way to do this, because often when people try and put makeup on their socket line, they tend to close their eyes, apply the contour to what they think is their socket line, and when they open their eyes, they can't see the makeup because it's beneath, it's almost on the lid. And the way to do it properly is to look straight ahead in the mirror when you're doing it, so you can see where your socket line should be, and you paint it in. You're almost faking a socket line using the natural brown colour. And if you can see almost straight away the difference between the eyes, it's really opening them up. And you're getting that real youthful contour to the eye. Once you know where you should be working, then you can close the eye if you want to do more blending. But it's a great way of finding the area. Also, when you're working on eyes, when you're using pencil, try and stop before you get to the outer corner. Otherwise, it can drag the eye down. We want to keep this area sort of a feeling of moving upwards. So again, when I'm contouring, I'm not taking it right down beneath this line. I'm keeping it almost in line here to give that that very wide open look to the eyes. I'm using the same colour I used to make the contour, but I'm using it with a small eyelining brush, and I've actually dampened the brush slightly because I want a little bit more intensity here. You can just look up for me. And I'm just going to go very close to the lashes, all the way along, slightly thicker at the outer corner. So I just want to give some good definition there. Bring it up to meet where the eyeliner ends on the top. And then I'm just going to use a cotton bud just to blend that away, because I don't want it to look like anything in particular. It's just there for definition. And also it's a good way of, if you don't have many lashes on the bottom, it sort of cheats the lashes too. Okay, so I've used the eyelash curlers again, which again is really important because it really opens up the eyes, especially as you're getting older. You want that very fresh-eyed look. And then I've used, again, black mascara, really working on the roots again to get that thickness at the roots and to give quite a good coating, just to keep the eyes very wide open. There's one other thing you can do if you want your eyes to look even more open, and that's to use a touch. Just look up for me, Bonnie. Just a little tiny bit of a flesh-coloured pencil, just on the inner rim. It just gives a little bit more of an open, wide-eyed look, and it's quite good for defining. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the eyebrows. We had a bit of a conversation about this, didn't we? Over plucking your eyebrows it's not a great thing to do. I think especially if you're going for that very youthful look. If you can at least leave them in this section here and just clean away really from the outer section. The more you take from here, I just think it gives you sort of a startle look, and also it can be quite an aging look. So I'm going to be using a pencil on Bonnie because I feel that I'd like to almost add a few more into that space there. Now again, it's colour. When you're penciling the eyebrows, colour, the right colour is so important. In general, most people suit more of almost like a greyish browny colour, like an ashy brown, a very flat colour. So that's the sort of colour you want to be aiming for. And certainly don't go any more probably than one shade darker than they are naturally. So I'm going to begin by, I want to add a few more between here and the arch. This is a little bit too thin. So I'm just going to be filling in that space, and I'm barely touching the eyebrow. You really need to have a very, very light hand. It's light, feathery movements because you're recreating the hair, so they need to be very feathery and very, very light. But as you can see already, just filling in that space there, I think, gives much. Eyebrows are so important. You know, they really do frame a face, and if you have a great shaped eyebrow, a great arch, it just does so much for your face. So I think it's really worth persevering, finding the right eye pencil and spending a little bit of time on them. So I'm continuing with this theme of really lifting and opening the eye. Where I've used the shading into the socket, that's almost bringing the eye out and opening the eye. And I'm continuing with that theme with the arch by penciling in at the highest point. I'm drawing attention here. And again, the whole eye is feeling much more open and much more lifted. Also make sure you've got the right length, but don't go too low down. You can use a brush as a guideline from the corner of your eye, and you don't really want to go much lower than that because again it's going to drag down the corners of the eyes. Now I'm going to move on to lips. Now, lips as you're getting older can become a bit thinner. So I want to focus on making the lips look as full as possible. And I've already used a little bit of the highlighter in the centre here, which is going to help with the fullness. When you're choosing a lip colour, as if anti-aging is something that you want to bear in mind, you need to steer away from very dark colours. So those kind of deep plums and burgundy shades make your lips look much thinner and also can give you quite a hard look to your mouth. So I tend to favour the more natural colours. But this is not to be confused with nude lipstick, which when you're getting older, if you use something that's very beigey and very pale, too pale for you, it almost has more of an aging effect again because it gives you that washed out look. So you want to go for something that's probably 1 or 2 shades rosier, if you like, or a little bit juicier than your natural lip colour, just to give that healthy feel to the lips. Okay, I'm going to begin by using my favourite nude lip pencil. And what I'm going to be doing here is just vaguely cheating. I mean, Bonnie's got full lips, but if you find that your lips are a little bit thinner, when you apply your pencil, now you mustn't go over the edge because that's not, we all know that's a bad look. Okay, so we're just buffing the pencil just slightly, at least to the edge, and maybe it's just going across for a little bit more fullness. But as you can see, the final look is very, very natural. And again, on the bottom, I'm just slightly cheating by a fraction and filling in the lips with the pencil. Okay, I've decided to use a powder blusher now on Bonnie. The reason I'm doing that, there's 2 reasons. Firstly, she has very, very oily skin. And secondly, I did quite a bit of concealing on her cheeks. If you can remember, we had some pigmentation problems there. If you do have pigmentation on your cheeks or blemishes, it is a better idea to use a powder because as you can imagine, if you're using a cream blush on top of concealer that you've used on the cheeks, you're going to rub it all off and you're going to expose the blemishes again. So a powder blush is the way to go. I have chosen one that has quite a bit of luminosity. It has a little bit of multicoloured pearling. And the effect again is this idea of anti-aging. So by using it, although it's a powder blusher, it is still going to have luminosity, it's going to catch the light, it's going to look very fresh and youthful. So I'm going to use, again, I'm going to use it just in the places you would blush naturally. So I'm not using it as a contour. I just want a very fresh and pretty flush to the cheeks. And I'll stand back and make sure it's looking good with the lips and the eyes. Just a small amount. And it really makes the eyes pop too. Okay, so I've more or less finished. If you wanted to, you could add a little bit of lip gloss if you wanted to make your lips look a little bit fuller, a little bit on the centre there and maybe around the Cupid's bow again, just a hint for added fullness. But apart from that, I think this is a great everyday, quite natural looking anti-aging makeup.